Hey everyone, welcome to my next free tutorial Friday. Just like to say thanks for the continued support, and I'm probably not going to be posting one next week. And the reason why is I'm heading off to cave, not in a cave, but to a cave event put on by Autodesk in Vegas. So I'm going to be gone next week traveling again, and so I think I'll probably skip next week and resume free tutorial Friday the first week of December. So I guess this is my chance to say have a great Thanksgiving next week for everyone that's celebrating that. And let's get into what I'm going to talk about this week. So this week I decided to talk a little bit about design. So this is, let's see, let's hide those. This is something right up here, a little acronym to remember, P.S.D. It's not Photoshop data. It's actually proportion, surface, detail. So these are three things that are really important, and I'm just going to demo that with a couple of cars that I painted over on top of this. So this is a 3D model of a CUDA, Barracuda from back in the 70s, and what I want to show is that these are three very important things, big high-level things to keep in mind when you're designing anything. And in this case, we're just going to use a car as an example. So let's have a look. So when you first look at this, right, and you want to take these in order, basically, because the thing that's important to realize is that no matter what you do with surfacing, right, with the surface or the details, as good as those may be, right, and as beautiful as the transitional forms will be across the surface, and as beautiful as the details might be, if this isn't right, the overall proportion, it just will never look good. So when thinking about these three high-level topics, when doing your styling, think about this one first, proportion. You've got to get the proportion right, okay? Then you can surface it, then you can add details. That's kind of, so it's a hierarchy, it's in that order. And so these are just going to be studies taking a 70s CUDA and then making a couple of options here, a couple of design options or styling options that are a bit more geared towards entertainment world. So here's an overlay, right? I just painted right over the top basically, and you can see the wheelbase is the same, but the rear wheel is a little larger, front wheel is the same, and it has a bit more rake, right? And what I mean by that is that the front is a little bit lower and the back is a little bit higher. Okay, I see it's got a little bit more rear overhang. So this distance is the rear overhang. It's got a little bit more to the back than the other one, and front is about the same. And you can see the window graphic, and this is actually also about the same. Just changed a little bit, but it makes a big difference, right? So that would be the first thing I would do is sketch over the top, decide on the proportions, then the next thing would be surfacing. So if I like these proportions, right, I'm going to jump in and worry about surfacing. So here all these studies are going to have the light. Let's see, there's a little reflective highlight there. So the light's basically upper left, but pretty vertical. And I'm going to treat these like a matte metallic surface. So really just a matte surface with a specular reflective highlight added after the fact. And I'm not going to render all these this week. Just want to introduce this concept to you to help with your styling and help you to prioritize and make sure that before you do surfacing, the proportions are worthwhile or appropriate for whatever your project is. And so surfacing would be things like adding this little radius through here, okay, by adding a little cast shadow, adding a little, section. If I was going to think of this in front view, the section might be doing something like this, the side body section. So that's when you start to modulate the surface, change the appearance of it, and effectively what you're doing is dividing the surface with these design lines through here and the value changes across the surface. All of those value changes are contributing to actually changing the proportion of the side body itself. So in a way you're doing surfacing, but you're also thinking about the proportions. And the way you do the surfacing, of course, is with value change. So that's how you do your surfacing. And that's how you think about it. And what you're trying to do is modulate and divide that so that in this case, we have this sort of dynamic line down the side body, which I'm going to emphasize with a graphic, like those old 70s cars had those big body graphics on them. A dark hood, a dark roof, right? And those graphics would fall into this category of a detail. Also by adding a name, a door handle, door cuts, chrome bumpers, trim elements, little wheel arch, chrome strips, chrome strip around the side window, chrome trim around the front windshield, right? White letters on the tires, adding a wheel design. It's not very inspired, but appropriate for the era. Those would all fall under that detail category. So that's the goal. Proportion first, surface second, details last. So let's just look at a couple more. Here's another one. All right, you can see how it changed. So wheelbase is about the same. Again, the rear wheel is a little bit larger than the original, right, which is a bit more of a modern take. And then the front got lower. The whole thing actually got thicker because the bottom is a little bit lower. I kept the height the same, and that makes the car thicker. And then it got lighter actually at the back, a little bit thinner, not much. So again, sort of, trying to be inspired by that original CUDA and the aesthetics of the 70s with body graphics. And you can see I've got a different proportion from the first one, and I have different surfacing, and I've added different details. But that's really all I've changed, and that's really what my focus is. And that's so much of the time, that's why I just work in grayscale, because you can really focus on these things without being influenced by color. So here's one that's changing quite a bit more from the original. So I've moved the wheels, the wheelbase. I think the wheelbase is actually about the same, but both of the wheels have moved back relative to the body, right? Or you could say the body's moved forward with this front overhang getting extended, and then showing a short overhang at the back. And just moved elements around. So it's really just an exercise of proportion, surface, and detail. Different graphics, different surface changes, very different proportions. And so these are kind of endless. You can just keep going and going. Here's one that's a bit more modern, and the height of the car has changed quite a bit now. It's much lower, much more aggressive, and looks more like late 70s maybe. So that's kind of it for this week. Just a really quick introduction to the idea of thinking about these three things: proportion, surface, and detail, in that order when doing concept work. It can be concept work for anything. Works for buildings and characters, and in this case vehicles, but products. So industrial design, entertainment design, architecture, illustration, even when you're designing original content. So I find it's really helpful, and I kind of think of these as gates, right? Must have nice proportions before I start modeling the surface or rendering the surface. And then once I have that in place, a lot of the details tend to follow, right, or be aligned with the surfaces. So if I have a line here, a body line, right, well, I might put the graphic then parallel to that. I'm not going to put the graphic probably wrapping across it, for instance. So a lot of times those details, right, complement. Let's go to this one, for instance. A lot of times the details will complement the surfacing. So you see I have this plane running down the shoulder of this car through here. Then there's a transitional form, and it bulges out over the rear wheel. And then you also see my graphic follows that and emphasizes that surfacing. So in this case, that graphic is trying to, right, be in harmony with the surfacing. And if I had done the detail first, right, I might not have been happy with the surfacing. This would have probably been dictating too much of the surfacing. So I like to do surface first, right? After proportion, then surface, then add my details. And usually the details are in harmony with other elements like this cut line and the position of that logo, right? I'm not putting the logo at a strange angle to this break line. So keeping those things in mind and getting them all to work together probably helps your designs to look more believable and more attractive. All right, well, I think that's about it. Probably have a week off next week. There is a related lecture to this one on my YouTube channel called Proximity-Based Styling, and if you've already seen that lecture, it's just a deeper dive into these sort of topics to think about while doing your styling work. But I hope you found this helpful. I think it is helpful to have little, mental tools and formulas and a strategy to think about styling, which is such an abstract and very subjective topic. So it makes it a little difficult. So I think things like this really just help to formalize it, and also gives you a way to develop a language that you can talk to other people and other designers about what may or may not be working in your design study. So that's it. Have a great Thanksgiving. Have a great week. Probably a new free tutorial Friday in 2 weeks, and probably the topic will be the How to Draw book, which has started shipping. I'm quite relieved to say. I think all of our website orders have gone out, and I know Amazon's now shipping. People have started receiving their books. So yay, finally. And I'll be back to work first week of December on the How to Render book, which is coming next. So thanks again for all the support. Have a great holiday, and check back in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.